On this episode of Game Shack, I show you guys how to play Street Fighter, Dig Dug, Galaga, and a host of other games on your ALU without using Coinops X. I'll show you how coming up next. Hey everybody, it's JDV here for EvilGeniusEntertainment.com. Thank you for stopping by the Game Shack. Really does mean a lot to us. All right, if you're a fan of the channel, you know that I'm a big fan of AtGames ALU machine. I think it's still the best multi-cade on the market. It's definitely the best bang for buck for any multi-cade on the market. Biggest screen, best control panel, most included games, and of course they can do things like play Coinops X or use Super Console X. But those things are not without their problems, because with Coinops X, of course, you have to log in every 5th use. The potentiality of AtGames at some point not supporting it is always going to be there. It's a little bit cumbersome to install, so if you just don't want to mess with that, it is a pain in the butt to install, particularly if you're trying to build it from scratch yourself. In terms of Super Console X, you have to map out the controllers just like you would have to on a Raspberry Pi, and that is just something for me that I hate doing. I just don't like to do. Luckily, there is a solution for licensed games, if that is something that matters to you, that comes directly from AtGames itself, and it is this legendary Flashback standalone console that you can buy. It comes with 100 or 110 games, depending on if you get the normal or the deluxe version. And one of the advantages of this system is that not only is it a standalone system, so you can play your friends on a TV using the 2 included Sega Genesis style controllers, but more importantly than that, you can plug and play into the ALU. And that'll let you play games like Dig Dug, Rally X, Street Fighter, Galaga, and some other games that you can't otherwise play on that system. So that is very cool. And most importantly of all, to me, it is truly plug and play. You plug in the HDMI and the USB, you let the ALU, you know that you're using this game, you turn the game on, and bam! You can play these games. You don't have to pre-map out anything. You don't have to register anything. You don't have to go online. It is as simple as it can get for using a product like this. Now, I never even bothered to unwire the controllers for this because I knew I was going to use it on the ALU. And that's where this thing really shines, is because once you've plugged it into an HDMI port and connected it with the USB, the ALU will natively recognize this, and it has all of the buttons pre-mapped out. And that is something that is very important to me. I hate mapping out controllers. I hate having to sign in onto the internet. This is something that avoids both of those. Once you have it set up and once you turn it on, you are playing the game. That's it. No questions asked. No need to go on the internet to re-up every 5 times. No need to map controllers. And if you are worried about having licensed games, you don't have to worry using this, because these are all licensed games by AtGames. Using a 32 gigabyte or smaller SD card, you can upgrade the firmware. You can add NES games and Sega Genesis games if you have those ROMs with very little fuss. The user interface is just fantastic. It's actually better than the ALUs. I hope that AtGames at some point actually adopts the user interface from this console, because it is very nice. You can change the bezel art, you can add scan lines, you can rewind some of the games, and you can save all of the games using the save slot functionality. So it offers a huge amount of functionality. How do you get it to work? Well, it's pretty easy. You just simply go over into the Arcade Play Links section of the settings menu in your ALU. You just scroll over to the Super Console icon. You click it. It's going to tell you to go ahead and switch the HDMI input. Hook it up using whatever length of HDMI cord you have, any USB. I use a very short one that I actually have left over from my core that I had from AtGames. Plug it in, click the input 2 times, power on the machine, And there you go, you're ready to rock and roll. So it is a dead easy, simple thing. And you can see here that all of the buttons map out exactly the way you'd want them to for a game like Street Fighter, and simpler games like Galaga and Dig Dug, it works just fine. Are there any negatives? Well, sure, there's always going to be negatives with something like this. There's not too many. I'll get to the big one in a second. One is cost. You're going to have to find this thing. I think it's going for $70 now on Amazon. You, of course, can probably find one maybe at a local dollar store or a Walmart, or you can get one used off of Amazon. But there is going to be an assorted price. Now, I've seen people on forums say, hey, I picked mine up for $20. Well, if you can find one of these for $20, do that right now. At $70, you have to really kind of want it. I do not know if AtGames is still manufacturing these things. I hope they are, but I'm not sure if they are. So cost and availability could be a potentiality. It could be hard getting it. A second, of course, it has to hang off the side of the machine or something. It doesn't bother me, but if you want a very clean look, then Coinops X is definitely going to be the way to go, because you're going to have a little small USB. Even Super Console X you can get in kind of a dongle size. So if you don't like having wires, that could be a negative. But the biggest negative to me is that you cannot resize the screen. So you cannot change the aspect ratio of the screen. And that's too bad, because you should be able to. Now, maybe you can in the most latest firmware update. If you guys, any of you guys have this, please let me know down below if you can, because that'd be an immediate reason for me to upgrade the firmware. But at least out of the box for me, you couldn't resize the screen. That said, you're still getting a screen size on the horizontal games that's 18 inches across. In other words, it's still going to be bigger than the Street Fighter that you buy from Arcade One by a full inch. So, it's plenty big enough to play these games, but it would be nice to fill up the whole screen. Also, it'd be nice to be able to switch this in a portrait mode, particularly for the vertical games, because yes, you can use this machine on your ALP. It will play right now either on the back glass or on the main glass, but because you cannot resize the game, it's a little, it's just going to end up being a small thing. Hey, if you're desperate, if the ALP is the only thing that you have and you don't want to mess with Coinops, it is a way to play these games. Maybe this is something that's already been fixed in firmware, or will change in additional firmware. I really do hope that AtGames continues to support these consoles and dongle blast units, because they are a very cool thing to have. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this episode, taking a look at how to use an AtGames console on here. Now, I will say this, they make a 50-game version of this that you can find for as cheap as $30 on Amazon, but I don't see the icon supported on the ALU. So I'm not 100% if the 50-game version of this is going to work on the ALU. If you know if it does or doesn't, please let me know down below, because that could be a cheaper way to get into this, and where you can still get Street Fighter and Dig Dug and Galaga and use those Sega Genesis and NES games if you want to sideload some things. Okay, so that's going to wrap up this episode on how to get a little extra functionality out of your ALU. Again, if you guys know anything, or if I forgot anything, please let me know down below. Give me a thumbs up on the way out. It really does help the channel. Love each other. And until next time, I'll see you guys in the Game Shack. Mwah! Oh, Cammy. Cammy, way.
Be sure to visit EvilGeniusEntertainment.com for exclusive content, swag, casting call news, and much, much more.